So as promised, continuing on with my 12 days of Salesforce, and this particular video is all about lead and understanding the lead object within the Salesforce platform. Now, not all organizations will use lead. They won't have a use case for it. But what you'll need to do is when you're thinking about your planning phase, which is what we sort of discussed in the previous video, you will need to understand your inbound. So whatever that might be inbound inquiry from email, it might be inbound inquiry through web form, it could be the fact that people apply or subscribe, it's all inbound. So how are you going to capture that? Now, on the Salesforce platform, lead is very much a siloed object. And what I mean by that is it really does operate in its own vertical. So once you've figured out your process, you'll have the option, and we'll go through it in a minute, and I'll share my screen. You'll have the option to convert a lead across into your core database. And some organizations will not. They won't do that. They'll actually keep anyone that was a cold lead or not, that particular person they're not going to pursue anymore. They'll leave them in lead and perhaps pass them back to marketing as a to continue their marketing qualification. For organisations that do want to pass across leads, no matter what their desirability might be, they will pass across, and we'll talk about accounts and contacts in another video, but you'll need to make the decision around the conversion process, and particularly paying a lot of attention to the data you want to capture from what you entered in the lead across to the account and contact object. So the other thing is on that conversion process is where you will be able to pick up if somebody already exists in your core database, and that might be based off email address and some other matching criteria. And we can talk about this feature later on in another video around duplicate matching rules and that type of thing, which Salesforce do offer out of the box, and you can configure it. So there'll be a standard one where it'll go, oh, this person looks like they already exist, and that will be the case even on lead, but you can also configure it depending on what license type that you actually have. So I'm going to just showcase the lead object and kind of what it looks like, but I want to pay also some attention to, if you do have web inquiries, the fact that, again, depending on what license type you have, you can connect your website web form to the lead object in Salesforce very easily, but you will need to probably apply a little bit of time to whoever your web developer might be to drop the HTML code into the web code. But the feature's there, it exists out of the box, and it's really, really useful. The other thing is if you're an organization that doesn't use the word lead, you can relabel this particular object too. So it might be whatever, could be new subscribers or interested or, applications, something like that. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can now see wherever we are. I think we might be here. So what you're seeing now is the lead object, and we talked about before that the tabs across the top are very much like an Excel spreadsheet. So going down the bottom here, you actually have options to have different list views, and you can create your own filters on what should show. Because you might have a desirability level, you might want to just see the things that have not been read by the particular owner. You need to pay attention also to who should own a lead. So what's your lead assignment rule within your organization? So is it a particular product that someone's inquired upon and it should go to a certain person? Is it a particular area? That all goes back to your first session of planning and really thinking about that, because Salesforce needs this information out of the box. It also needs to know, or at a minimal level, it needs a last name. So if you're not capturing last name or you won't have it, you need to put something in its placeholder. With Salesforce, out of the box, it's designed to be a B2B model, so business to business model. Business to consumer or customer, we can counter that later on in accounts and contacts, but from this purposes, it will kind of always want to apply a company to it, thinking that you're going to pursue a particular contact that works at a company that you can engage with, and grow this relationship and hopefully convert them across from a lead into your core database, hopefully a sales opportunity of some sort. So the list views that you see here are really configurable. All you need to do is hit the cog and you can actually set your filters, and you can also choose the fields that you wish to show in this. And this is why in my first video I explained, really great idea to get onto getting your own developer org, because you can start to play with how you want this all to look and feel. You can create some fields, you can look at what you're currently capturing on your spreadsheet and make those and then apply them, and then start to see, because I find list view is very much more similar to operating off an Excel spreadsheet. And the reason being is that you do have inline editing options. So depending on what your values are, or if you've got a blank value, you can very much populate these things like you would in an Excel spreadsheet. And I think that is why I find it so good to use, and you've got a lot of versatility with it. So as I mentioned, you have got web to lead functionality, and where you do that is through your setup. So the little cog at the top right hand corner of the screen is your setup, it's the back end of the system. And just to get familiar with that, you need to go to the object manager, and then you need to go to lead. Which is here. So within the lead object, that's where you're going to find fields and your page layouts and some other unique things that you might want to use. So this is all the list, and then you can create your new fields by clicking on new. And the other good thing about doing this is, like I mentioned, this is the custom field area. So if there's a particular field that you desire to have and capture information, there's a multitude of different data types that you can choose to create. Now, as an example, and this is a little gotcha that's really useful to know, depending on what data import tool you use, and probably data imports is something that I can talk about in another video, so please let me know. But you've got date and you've got date and time. So date is obviously the most common. However, on import, there are some gotchas around the way the data makeup or the date makeup should be, i.e. dd/mm/YYYY compared to mm/dd/YYYY. There is a lot of documentation available on the Salesforce help website, and I really would recommend that you have someone study it, because depending on if you use Data Loader or if you use Data Import Wizard, it will affect the way that date shows. So that's just a little thing, and that goes across the board, not just on lead, but it's something that you should really know about on imports. So look, yeah, there's a huge list here of if you needed to capture extra information that's not on the standard lead layout, then you can go ahead and create your own. In the page layout, you have different, or you can, should I say, you can have different layouts. So you might have several products or things that you offer, and you might ask different questions in association to the different product or service that you are offering. So therefore, instead of a user scrolling down a huge page layout, you can actually go, product A or subscription A, we need to ask this, which means we only have this amount of questions on our page layout, and B might be a little bit more significant, and this might map up to our website questions that we ask, etc. So the reason why you might have multiple layouts is for that reason, but if you're going to have multiple layouts, you will need multiple record types, and then you would apply the record types to the page layouts. So create record types to be product A, B, and C, and then you would create page layout A, B, and C, and then you would assign them appropriately. Just got to move this out of the way. So you will see the little button here around page layout assignment. So again, you're looking at going back to that first stage of planning out. You know, that's fair enough that we're connected to the website, but we have 4 different forms. We have 4 different potential customers. These are the questions that we ask, etc., etc. So very much be aware of that. So I won't go through all the granular stuff. I think we'll just continue to talk about lead. So in home, if we type in web, if I can actually spell it properly, you can see we have web to lead. You will also see web to case, but we're going to talk about leads. So this is one way of capturing leads from your website into the lead object into Salesforce. So it's essentially creating, hit that button, and then once you've gone ahead and do that step of creating all the fields that you need to capture, what matches up with the website, etc., you then go ahead and select whatever's available to be selected, and you populate them in the selected fields. You need a return URL, so I would definitely talk to your web development team on what the return URL should be. Let me just put in www.salesforce.com for now. You'll have an option to include recapture in HTML. Now, if that means nothing to you, then I would definitely talk to your web dev team, because that is really going to help. They may have their own recapture in their code that doesn't require that. So if you do untick it, the hazard is receiving a lot of spam. And I've seen that before. When we haven't controlled recapture in some way or another, you'll just get a load of dodgy Russian leads come through into your Salesforce org. All you do then is you hit generate, and then you get given your HTML code, and it's quite literally a matter of copying and pasting that. When you do hit finish, you lose it. So you've got to copy and paste and stick it in a notepad or Word document and fire it off to your web development team who need that to stick it into your web code. But that will be how you go ahead and do that. So there's 2 things. Right now we're in obviously the development org, but if you had a real life use case or paid subscription to Salesforce, what you'll be using is Sandbox. So you'll be able to get what they call like a sandbox. So it's like a play area, if you like. So it's a way to trial these things out before, trial them and test them, the solutions out. And then you move that stuff across into your live production environment through whichever way of deployment that you choose. The most common would be change sets, the most easiest way to move things across to change sets. And that's how you'll get that all accurately popped in. So just remembering, if you do choose to use web to lead, please remember that any change that you make, I think this is a big oversight, and this is coming back to point 1 being planning. If you do start to make incremental changes to your web forms, I want to now capture this, I want to now capture that. That is more time on your web development team, and I just can't express it enough that so many areas that are quite simple, they just get overlooked. So just remember that. But this would be one way that you can actually go ahead and check it out. And we'll talk about web to case another video if it's interesting enough to you. But this is the thing. So although we're calling it lead, if you were an organization of some sort that may be receiving applications, or I don't know what else it might be, but maybe not a lead generation type tool, you just rename the object from lead to whatever your use case actually is. And then you would still have the web to lead feature available to you, and you'd be able to web gen those things in. It could be a request for change as an example. I don't know, just a very simple thing just came into my head then. So that would be another use case for it, and being creative with what's out of the box without heavily over engineering something that actually already exists. So let me just go back to lead and show you then having a look in the details page. So this screen here, the whole thing. So from this area, this is called a compact layout. And when you were in your setup before, you would see that we actually had page layouts and we have compact layouts. So you can actually configure what is the key highlighted information that you want to see at the top, if you so wish, because you don't have to have it there either. So you'll see compact layouts here, and then you can select the fields that sit at the top. And again, if they are different types of lead, you can have different types of compact layouts in association with that. And it's just a matter of cloning them, as you can see here, and popping in the fields that you need to see. Underneath here, this is what they call a path, and you can have it on any object, and that will go off the status of something. So this one here is saying open, working, closed, but you again go back to page 1, which is your planning of what stages does my lead go through? What do I need to track? When would it be ready for qualification or conversion into my core database that I can now start utilizing? You know, or is there different statuses here that need to go through marketing qualification before it goes to sales? And then you can think about lead assignment from each status of the lead, which stage it's currently in. And then underneath here, you've got sort of your core information. So, you know, depending on which org you look in around the world, this all looks very, very different. And I'll tell you why. So all these little things that you see, so this now white box here that has activity details, chatter, news. These are tabs that exist. You've got related information down the side. This screen can look however you like. This is just standard out of the box. The overarching layout is all held in the background, and where that lives is in Lightning record pages. So at the moment, you're just looking at a page layout, lead page layout. You can create a Lightning record page and assign it to different profiles. You know, does your call center need to see something that looks different? So you can assign a page layout for this particular. Does it need to be simplified? Do they not need to know about the path that goes across the top? Very, very versatile, and it needs planning, guys. You know, map it out, draw it. Okay, these people in this user group should see things one way. So you then have options for how these Lightning pages actually look. Is it an application page? I'll probably explain that a bit later on. Is it a home page? Is it a record page? This is what we were just looking at. We were looking at record page. So we could go in, hit next, call it lead product A, go to lead, and it decides to load, and then we go next. And this is where you're getting another multitude of templates. So do you want the sidebar on the left? Do you just want a header with a big space in the middle? I'm talking seriously just there's so many different templates available to you. So I could say, yes, I want lots of things to look at. Cool, let's do that. And now you get given this page layout configuration, page layout. Again, remembering this is Lightning record page, and this goes across all the board with all the objects, but I thought I'd just share it with you on lead because this is probably where you're going to start with your implementation planning. So down the side here, you've got standard. Now, the only way that I can kind of liken this to is if you've ever created your own website or blogging page. Okay, so the only way that I can really liken this concept is if you've ever had to use a website builder, or if you've ever used Blogger, and they have components down the side. So down the side here is literally the widgets that was on Blogger, that was on website design, you know, make your own website pages, and down the side here. So they call them components in Salesforce. It's literally drag and drop. So we just looked at the path before. I put path in there. If you've got path set up, that is. Let's close this down. This here is, I want to look at all my related things. Okay, I'm going to pop that in there. I actually want to customize some stuff. I want to give my users instructions. So you can use rich text editor and type in all of your instructions in this space. And you can have control over the size of that font, everything. It's all there. You can put links to other things. It might be, you know, particularly if you use outsourced or external companies that log into Salesforce, maybe it's a link to a documentation database or something like that. So this is Lightning record layouts, and the way then once you've done all your hard work, you save it and then you have to activate it. And this can be a little bit confusing and a bit of one of those things that you might just miss. So you can choose that this now record layout that you have now created may now be your organizational default. So for lead, I can now say, actually, I want my whole org should look like this. Or you can activate it particularly just for applications. And we're not ready to talk about that right now, but that is down the track. So you can apply it to applications, Salesforce applications, that is, and then assign to apps, record types, and profiles. So actually, this is my sales team, and I want them to see it on the desktop, and it's my master copy. So if I had other record types, it would show here, so you can actually get it to product level, or like we said before, it might be a different user group that need to see certain things, and then actually it's all the record types. People that look at this record type now need to see this Lightning layout. And then you go ahead and you look at the profiles that we've got in the system, and yeah, then you can apply it that way. So it gets that granular. So when you go back to planning, you look into planning and design, because sometimes that's overlooked as well, that it's like you don't realize how much option that you actually have on this system. Again, it is license dependent in some cases, so I would just be, you know, making sure that you've got all those things sorted out there too. But that's why, you know, essentially you can then control your activity that you're recording on your lead, and it, you know, you could live, activity can live on any area on this page. So you can log calls, you can create tasks for this particular person, you can create a meeting, you can send an email out. And email templates we can also talk about in another video. So this, you know, you can choose which way that this is looking. So again, through your, through here, once you've added tabs in up here, you can then change the way related and details show. You might want them around the other way. So actually I want details to default, and then I want to move details across, and that's just done that there. And if you want anything else at all, you just basically select what else you would like. You may just want to look at tasks as well in a snapshot. So highly configurable. What to think over of how you want lead to perform to you. Is it standard out of the box for your organization, or is it something that you actually like the concept of what lead can offer, but you just need to change the name? And I'll show you the way to change the name that is of interest to you. So we'll just go leave this page. I'm not going to save those things. And we wait till that loads. Right, so what we do now is, now we're back in setup, we go to home. And if you go to labels, rename tabs and labels, you can then find lead, edit, and away you go. You literally just change the name and you go through the wizard, I like to call it, and you can actually change a lot of things in this spot. One thing though is, if you do decide to do this, it can significantly affect your reporting. So you really highly need to trial this and test it, user acceptance test, in a sandbox environment before you go ahead and start changing things. And the reason why I say that is because I have seen so many companies change addresses. Do not ask me why. People think their organization is so unique and they do things this way and they send this to this and this. It's all the same, but don't tamper with some really, really efficient standard functionality around address, particularly on lead, because it does link to Google as well. And you do get those amazing things. So you've got longitude and latitude, and you know, oh, but we don't call it zip code here in this country. It's like, can you just consider to not touch it? Okay, these are standard fields that are out of the box. If you want to customize, create a new field and call it what you want. But let me tell you, when you start tampering with standard fields in Salesforce, things can, and architecturally, things can get really messy. It's terrible to maintain if you don't know what has gone on in the past, the reasons why you decided to make those changes in the first place. So definitely, when you get to that first stage of planning and information, so I understand you have billing addresses, I understand you have shipping addresses, but guys, just keep it simple and don't over-engineer it. At the end of the day, we all know what a shipping address is, because that's a physical address, and what a billing address is could be a PO box. Okay, then you might have, you know, depending on your use case, you might have a residential, etc. But that's where you need to start really making a bit of a consultative approach of, really guys, can we cope with this? You know, is it really necessary? Do we actually know, you know, our internal process? Are we overcomplicating things? Just to stew on that for 24, 48 hours before you make any decisions on. You've got the option at 100%, you've got the option there. Salesforce lets you do it. But my biggest caution of all is reporting. And people have come to me and said, my front end of Salesforce does not match the back end, and they can't make head nor tail reporting, and that's a really scary place to be. So if this series of videos is around successful Salesforce implementations and things that you should consider internally before taking on a Salesforce partner, trying to do it yourself cost efficiently. Totally get it. But these videos are here to share my knowledge over 4.5 years, over 20 odd Salesforce projects. I've seen a fair bit of stuff go on. So I hope you enjoyed this. Watch out for my next video, and yeah, any questions at all, just stick them in the comments.